The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion has a variety of realms that the player could visit and adventure around in. Of course, there's Cyrodiil, the province of Tamriel that the game's based out of. Following that is Mehrunes Dagon's fiery hellscape, the Deadlands, an area that's teeming with horror and pain. Up next is Mankar Cameron's Paradise, a serene and scenic realm. It was intended to house fallen Mythic Dawn cultists until Tamriel has been purged and cleansed by Lord Dagon. Then you have the Madhouse, Sheogorath's Shivering Isles, a world filled with beauty, misery, and insanity. While those are the settings that are the most fleshed out, there are smaller pockets of realms that the player can temporarily step inside of. You have the Dreamworld, Arkved's Tower, Quagmire, and last but not least, the Painted World. In fact, that last one I mentioned, Dibella's gift to the mortals of Nirn and an artifact directly from the Aedra, is the topic for today's discussion. I wanted to go through its correlating quest, A Brush with Death, listen to the dialogue, and play through the action. Then, I wanted to chat a bit about the lore and some theories surrounding the Painted World and the Brush of True Paint. The quest can begin for the player as early as level 1. By fast traveling over to the major city of Shadenhall, you can ask around for rumors or overhear discussions regarding an NPC, Rythe Lathandis.
Rythe Lathandis is one of the greatest painters in all Cyrodiil. Sadly, he's gone missing. His wife Tavella is beside herself with grief.
This formally begins the quest, A Brush with Death. However, if you wanted to fast track the process, you can skip the rumors and just as easily seek out Rythe's wife, Tavella.
I'm Tavella Lathandis. I apologize that I can't give you the respect a guest in my home would normally receive, but I am at my wit's end. I am sorry to be so forward, but I desperately need your help. It seems that my husband, Rythe, has gone missing, and I just don't know what to do. Yes, my husband is the Rythe Lathandis. Have you heard of him? You haven't? That's strange. Rythe is known far and wide as one of the best painters in all Cyrodiil. His specialty is setting the great forest to canvas. The paintings look so amazingly real that some say they can see the trees sway in the breeze. That's a silly notion, of course, but it just goes to show the attention to detail Rythe uses when he paints. Yes, Rythe likes to work in his studio with the door locked so no one can disturb him. He usually comes out to eat dinner and sleep, but 2 days ago he didn't come out at all. At first I wasn't worried. He does that occasionally. But when he didn't come out for a full day, I unlocked the studio with the key he said to use only in emergencies. It turned out he wasn't inside. I'm sure he never left that room, so I have no idea where he's gone. Please, help me find Rythe. I love him dearly, and I am so worried. Oh, thank you so very much. Here's the key to Rythe's studio. You may come and go as you please. If you need me, I'll be around the house. Do hurry. I miss my love so much.
If you wanted a formal lay of the land, you could always have a look around the Lathandis residence. Something I couldn't help but wonder is if a lot of the basic in-game paintings were actually done by Rythe, or perhaps an artist who mentored him, but that's something we'll learn about later. Returning to the task at hand, the player can enter Rythe's studio and investigate the scene. Apart from the locked door, there's no other entry or exit point, making the disappearance all the more mysterious. Searching over the desktops, rummaging through the supplies, there's no obvious clues as to where Lathandis could have went. That is, until you approach the completed painting of the Great Forest. You'll note that you can interact with the unusual painting, and doing so brings you into the Painted World.
Where did you come from? You look real enough. You must be from the outside. Oh, thank goodness someone finally came. While I'm overjoyed to see a friendly face, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. You're stuck here like I am. Sorry to break it to you like that, but if it wasn't for that annoying thief, we wouldn't be in this predicament. I was in my studio when a Bosmer wearing dark clothing accosted me. Before I could call for help, he knocked me unconscious. When I came to, I found that the door to my studio was still locked and that the thief had snatched my paintbrush. That's when I saw it. There was something on the canvas of my painting that I hadn't put there. It looked somewhat like a troll, but it was badly done. Then it hit me. The Bosmer must have leapt into the painting, then painted guardians inside to protect himself using the brush of true paint. I knew the secret of my success would be revealed one day. I can tell you all about the brush if you like. Very well. The brush showed up several years ago in the possession of an artist who was serving in the Arnesian War of 396. It seems an errant fireball had exploded next to him, and he lost the use of both arms. He was a stubborn man who didn't want to give up his talent. Being a devout follower of Dibella, he prayed to her for something that would allow him to express himself once more. She heard his plea and gifted him with the brush. It said the bristles of the brush are woven from Dibella's own hair. That injured man was my father. He passed the brush on to me, and I intend to pass it along to my kin one day. Did you want to know how it works? The brush allows the artist to paint from within a canvas. It opens a portal into which the artist may enter to paint things life-sized. All the painter has to do is have the brush in his possession, and whatever he imagines appears in the canvas. Of course, I'd like to wave it around anyway. It makes me feel more like a legitimate painter. I guess it all doesn't matter now. Unless you can defeat those painted trolls, we have no chance of getting the brush back. The trolls that the thief painted seem to have turned on their creator and killed him. He didn't know the brush had its risks. The creatures are now loose all over the forest and in the clearing where I was still working. The brush is on the body of the Bosmer thief there. I will not be able to help you. I am not a warrior. But take these bottles of turpentine. They might help. Do be careful. I'll have to remember to remove the trolls from my painting before I complete this piece.
The Elder Scrolls 4 Remastered version of the Painted World is incredible. The original game's variant was already a beautiful scene to look at, and personally was one of my favorite worlds that we got to explore, if only for a brief moment. The developers cleverly added a canvas-like filter to the screen, so if you were to stand still, it really looks like you're just staring at a two-dimensional picture. Of course, the natural lighting and the setting sun adds depth, but the world is more painting-like than it was ever before. As mentioned prior, the painted world is unfortunately incredibly small. It's a short circuit that has the player simply following a carved out path. Along the way, you'll run into the only other quote-unquote living NPCs, the painted trolls. These trolls are scaled 1-to-1 to the player's level, making them easier opponents. They still regenerate their health over time though, so be sure to eliminate them as quick as possible. Fire damage works its wonders, and what's more, the turpentine provided by Rythe is able to shred through their health. In my instance, a simple bound dagger at level 1 was able to one-shot these things no problem. The painted troll fat that they drop is a fairly valuable ingredient that could be sold to merchants or used in potions. Even more interesting though is the implication behind looting the beasts and bringing their treasures back to the real world. If this was a fake, almost ghost-like realm, how is the player able to take resources out of it and back to Cyrodiil? That's something to think about for later. In any case, as mentioned before, the circuit through the painted world is brief, and in total, there are only 6 spaced out trolls to defeat. Technically, you don't even need to cross paths with more than one beast, as it's not hard to cut across the boulders that are separating you from the thief. At the end of the line, the player will spot the aforementioned dead Bosmer lying on the ground. Really, the only notable thing about him is that he's carrying the brush of true paint. Unfortunately, the brush goes straight to your miscellaneous items, and nothing can be done with it on your end. As for the canvas-like realm, that's about it. The boundaries are small. You can climb on the rocks, but you can't go anywhere else. There aren't any other obvious or hidden items to take, and at this point, it's just you and Rythe. Waiting does nothing, as the scene here is permanently sunset. With nothing else left, you return to the Dunmer and hand over the brush of true paint.
Let me go paint us a way out of here. Good work. Now I can paint the portal home. After it's complete, you must go first, or else you'd be stuck in here forever. Follow me.
Rythe opens the door back to Tamriel, and as instructed, you go through it first. He'll be waiting for you on the other side, and looking back, the portal to the painted world is now closed. You speak with him one last time to close out the quest.
I don't know how to thank you. You have a good heart to help me get back home. I'll never forget what you've done for me. Here, please take this apron as a token of our friendship. It's not much, but perhaps it will help you in the future. All I ask in return is to keep the brush's existence secret. If word gets around that I have it, I'm afraid more than a lone cut purse will visit me.
Taking a peek at the Apron of Adroitness, it's an enchanted light armor cuirass that's in the form of an apron and offers the effects of Fortify Agility and Intelligence for 5 points. The level 25 plus version has those same fortifications for 10 points each. Speaking with Tavella, she doesn't offer much closure in terms of the quest, and Rythe is pretty much done with his segment as well. Looking into Rythe's inventory, the brush of true paint is gone, and there's no way to revisit the painted world. With that, thus ends the quest, A Brush with Death. Now, let's talk about some of the key moments and any lore/theories surrounding them. First and foremost, let's discuss Rythe's story. His father was an artist who lost the use of his arms in a war that was almost 40 years ago. Not wanting to give up his passion of painting, he prayed to the divine Dibella. She responded by gifting him the brush of true paint, a magical tool that allows the user to jump into a canvas and paint the world from within. In Rythe's own words, it's used to open a portal. You can paint inanimate objects as well as sentient ones. These sentient ones actually have the ability to come alive. In this case, they happen to be trolls. And not only could they move around and interact with the environment, they showed aggression and hostility towards the player as well as the Bosmer, even going as far as killing their creator, the Wood Elf. This Adric artifact's whereabouts has been kept a secret, and not even Rythe's own wife, Tavella, knows that he has it. Not only for fear of being discovered as an artistic fraud, but also to avoid it falling into the wrong hands. It's quite an interesting tale, but is it real? Is the brush's origin story true? Well, there is some room for doubt. The only person who can corroborate the story is Rythe's father, and he's seemingly not in the picture anymore. Rythe has already lied about his artistic capabilities to everyone else, including his wife, so why not jazz up the story to his savior, one of the few people who's found him out? Ideally then, there's less of a chance of his fraudulent activities being made public. Well, as it would turn out, there are some texts out there in the Elder Scrolls universe, namely from ESO, that help to prove this story. Sort of. The actual origin itself is different from what Rythe explained to the player. According to the UESP, the Journal of Bravam Lethandis was written before year 582 of the Second Era. The entries detail Bravam's experiments on 3 test subjects. Using the power of illusion, he was able to trick them into thinking they were living inside of a palace. The hallucinations and illusions were mind-breaking, and the 3 started to go mad. At one point, one of them rocking back and forth, continuously prayed to the divine Dibella. Sometime later, Bravam returned to check on his subjects. All that was left in his previously filled basement was a giant mural and a singular paintbrush. Obviously, this story is different from what Rythe had told the player. This wasn't several years ago during the events of the Arnesian War, and it wasn't intended for his father. If anything, Bravam is a relative to Rythe, but likely not even his dad. Since this version of events comes from ESO, it means one of 2 things. They blatantly disregarded the story told in Oblivion, or Rythe was told a lie. Maybe his dad was gifted the brush from Bravan, used it to make a name for himself in the world of painting, and when he was unable to use his hands anymore, told a fragmented truth to Rythe. Dibella was prayed to, the brush was a divine gift, and Lethandis Sr. could continue to paint without much suspicion, at least from his son. It's an interesting idea, but I can't help but wonder if the lore was later retconned or forgotten for ESO, or if perhaps the story really was that Rythe was lied to all along. It's something we will likely never officially know. I've briefly covered this quest before in Original Oblivion, but I never really read in between the lines with it. A commenter once mentioned how special this quest really is. The Brush of True Paint is one of the few Adric artifacts that we get to interact with during the events of Oblivion. Of course, that's pre-Knights of the Nine, which brought on several weapon and armor pieces. The Daedric gods give their weapons, armor, and miscellaneous objects to the player on numerous occasions. In the base game though, there's only a select few Aegic relics. Obviously, the Amulet of Kings given by the divine Akatosh. There's the armor of Tiber Septim, a relic of Talos, if you want to count that. Then there's the brush of True Paint, an artifact that's allegedly woven directly from Dibella's own hair. Dibella is described as the goddess of beauty and the lady of love as per the UESP. This is what brings me to my next point. Does the brush of True Paint open a portal to Dibella's realm? It's said through the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages that the planet of Dibella floats through Mundus and has its own plane of existence. Nobody quite knows what the world looks like though, nor how it's perceived. Is it possible that the paintbrush allows the user to temporarily open a portal and visit a pocket realm of the planet Dibella? After all, art is often considered the greatest expression of love and beauty, some of the aspects that the goddess stands for. Maybe the brush is able to temporarily warp the planet's reality into a perspective that the artist can actually understand, hence why they're able to jump into the canvas and build out a world of their choosing, a realm that shows their expression. It's also how Bravam Lathandis' test subjects were able to escape. They fled into a whole new fantasy land that may not be so mythical as originally thought. There does seem to be life on Dibella, as we can see through the creation of the trolls. There's energy there that could be shaped and manipulated into taking on all new forms of life. They act and behave through their own free will though, hence why the trolls attacked the player and killed the Bosmer thief. It's also why the player can loot the painted trolls and bring back their fully functional and tangible troll fat, an ingredient that can somehow be successfully used back in the world of Nirn. Somehow this item was conjured up in this supposedly artificial realm, and it still operates the same way as its quote-unquote real-world counterpart. It's why no one else can know of the brush's whereabouts and existence though. This tool can be used to create a world beyond everyone's wildest dreams. It can make something as simple as the Great Forest, or it can also make a world far more sinister and scary. Who knows how the thief knew of the brush's existence and what his intentions were with it. Not to mention, Rythe said that the portal can be closed while people are still inside of the painted world. For this theory, I don't think Rythe is aware of the paintbrush's true ability, as all he was told is that it creates an artificial realm where he can simply make the perfect painting. However, maybe that's all it is. An artifact that allows the user to make their ideal image. Similar to the brush's origins, we may never know just how truly powerful this relic is. All in all, A Brush with Death is a really interesting quest with an intriguing concept. On the surface, it seems as simple as hopping into a picture, Mario 64 style, discovering an entire new world with a unique look and design to it, saving the trap painter, and hopping back out. If you look deeper though, there's a whole slew of questions and theories that come from it, and the possibilities are endless. I'd love to know your thoughts down below on this quest and the theories provided, and until next time, keep on adventuring.